This is the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, giving you weekly sports analysis, opinions, and discussion. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and J-Raff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 175th episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, alongside of me, co-host J-Raff.
Yeah, it's good to be back for another weekend, and we've kind of had this topic has been out there, and I'm just excited that we're finally able to really get this going and address this topic that is so relevant to our biggest topic on the show, which in general is football, because it's kind of been hanging out there. I know I have gotten a lot of questions about people saying, like, when are you going to talk about this? I can't believe you and Joey didn't talk about it. Well, one, we kind of wanted to let it play out at least a little bit before we talked about it. We also had some other things scheduled in there that we really wanted to take advantage of and get those shows in as well. Like last week, we kind of did our greatest female athletes, and we wanted to make sure we get that in, even though we could have pushed it back. But it fit well last week, gave us some more time to kind of digest what we were looking at here. So anyway, it's a good it's an interesting topic tonight, and we'll see how things play out as we talk about this hotly debated topic.
Yeah, I expect this to be a pretty well listened to show. Whether or not it happens all live, that's up for debate. We don't get too many people that are able to hang with us on at 6:30, on Sunday evenings. But I know we get a decent amount of people who listen on podcasts or on the archive on Ustream and Blog Talk Radio and whatnot. So I expect there to be a healthy discussion, be it during or after the show. We already have a couple pictures to share that were sent in, and also a rebuttal before we even talked about it. I think they were expecting some things. I don't know, maybe they'll get their expectations, but it's
almost like some of our listeners know us.
Like
they know what we're going to say.
I don't know. I think they're selling us a bit short. Well, at least me. I think I've been very fair over the last year and a half or so.
You are much more fair than I am.
So, if you haven't figured it out, we're talking about, and I think Justin said it, but the Deflategate controversy and the improper deflation of the New England Patriots footballs in at least the AFC Championship game this past season. And Justin we're gonna give you a recap of everything that's gone on. Hopefully, all the facts and necessary information, and then we're not forgetting anything or missed anything. I'm sure if we do, people will be apt to point it out immediately. But we're also going to give our opinions, that's what this show's about, is our take on it. Because I think that's what a lot of people, when you're watching sports, you want the facts during Sports Center and the games, but then when you listen to the radio shows, you're kind of looking for the opinion, right. And that's what we want to give to you now.
We talk about that all the time. Some of we want places where we can go and watch the highlights of specific things, and more apps. In all honesty, like when I want Phillies highlights, I just go to, and actually they have had some highlights this past week, amazingly enough. I go to my MLB at Bat app. Like that's what I use when I want highlights, because I know I can go on there, I can watch whatever highlight I want. If I'm looking for opinions, then I go to other sources, and we certainly are going to add in our opinions today. So it could be an interesting show. We'd love to have your take on lots of things here too, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
Yeah, we're going to throw out the contact information probably closer to the end, because we have some time set up that if you want to call the show, you want to text us, you want to email us, you'll get that opportunity to do so at the end. Right. We're actually going to save the email towards the end, because I don't want to send any of that out there before we give our take and opinion. But we do have an email from a listener. This is from Terry in Shillington, Pennsylvania. He just passed along a couple images he was seeing floating around his email on the internet. And there are a lot out there, which, Justin, we talked about before the show. So you were entertained by some of the ones you've seen on Facebook. Yeah. And I did notice that it was your mom sending around a lot of these pictures.
She sent me more picture emails this week than I think I've ever gotten from her.
So I'm sure everyone's probably seen these. If you're on any of the social media sites, or just looking at web pages, sports web pages around the net, you've seen a bunch of these. And the first one is the obvious one, this year's Super Bowl rings for the New England Patriots, featuring the ball needle. That one's been around for a while. I'm sure it's probably not even a new picture. It's just one that someone slapped.
Right.
The title that will get the hits and the downloads, 1 million people claiming that they created it. But there's that one, and then also the other one, which is actually the cover of the Boston Herald from last week. And interesting. We talked about this before the show. Looking at it, I don't know if I completely get the direction of the main title. Or what they're trying to say is, why do they hate us? Anybody have any ideas? I understand. Like, is that from the jealousy point, or is it, hey, look, we have things listed as they point out in the picture that taint these Super Bowls in people's eyes? Like, are they saying they taking that angle, or are they taking the other angle?
Right.
I want to say it's the former, based on the two people, Tom Shattuck and Joe Fitzgerald. The headlines at the top. It's more of a, this is all a hater, jealousy, they want to be us type of thing. Not, there's actually something to the debate or, the opinions surrounding the people that, hate the Patriots. But I was a little confused by the headline because I wasn't sure which to buy into that, though I do think it's the former in the really everyone's jealous of us kind of direction.
Yeah, and, we'll touch on those kind of overarching ideas, kind of as we go through. Some of this has been tied into, everybody just kind of wishes they could have be in that position, all that kind of stuff. And we'll get to many of those things kind of as we go through and kind of address, not point by point, because, we're not going through everything there, but at least a lot of the main things here that we'll discuss tonight.
For those of you that are regular listeners, if you have the number and you have the ability to text us, send us emails, go ahead and do that during the show. We'll get to it when we can. For those of you that may be new or don't remember how to contact us, we'll get to that part at the end. We're hoping maybe the last 5-10 minutes at least to give you the opportunity for questions, comments, rebuttals. You want to take us to task. Hey, we love to. We don't get that often, if ever. But we want to hear what you have to say, because this is the controversy surrounding the most popular sport in America. And one of the teams that, like many think, it's love to hate, and this just adds fuel to the fire.
Absolutely.
And but before, or why just push it off anymore? We're gonna dive right into it, and we're just gonna quickly do a recap of what exactly has been Deflategate as it's been known. I've also apparently some people have been referring to it as Ball Ghazi. Did you see that?
I have not.
When I was doing the research for this recap, it was like, also known as Ball Ghazi, and I was like, I have never heard a single person ever say that.
I do know that Mike and Mike, when it first came out, mentioned it, and Mike Greenberg sent out the quote from Seinfeld with shrinkage, and they did hashtag shrinkage, and in a matter of minutes, shrinkage was trending in the U.S., which he takes great joy in.
Oh, I'm sure.
Being the giant Seinfeld fan that he is, so that was it was just kind of funny. I've heard that. I have not heard the Ball Ghazi.
Yeah, that was the first time I had heard that one, but I do remember the shrinkage thing. But anyways, so Deflategate, when what is the central event? Well, it was January 18th of this year, the AFC Championship game in New England at Gillette Stadium, featuring the Colts visiting the Patriots. The Patriots destroyed them. It was 45-7. It wasn't even close. New England was clearly the better team. Bar none. There's no argument that New England was the much better team, and they went on to play in the Super Bowl and defeat the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks in a really exciting game. It was a great game that the Patriots, won. So they're Super Bowl champs, but this was hanging over them. It kind of disappeared a little because after the NFL brought Ted Wells on to investigate everything, you didn't hear about it. Like every couple of weeks, someone would be like, yeah, we still don't have that investigation. We still, then free agency happened, the draft happened, and then it popped up, over the last week. But Deflategate started following Colts linebacker DeQuell Jackson intercepting a Tom Brady pass in the first half. The Colts, I think part of the equipment staff noticed that the ball felt a little underinflated. They went up the hierarchy and ended up getting into the NFL's hands, the knowledge of this. So they actually had the referees inspect the remaining footballs, not the one that DeQuell Jackson intercepted, but the 11 of the 12 remaining footballs that each team has 12 balls entering the game. So the refs actually inspected the 11 other footballs at halftime. We know that they were all at the proper inflations when they left the referee's hands to start, which is a minimum of 12.5 pounds per square inch PSI. That was confirmed prior to the game, and any type of supposed inappropriate handling by the New England staff. 2 referees took separate measurements of the balls. I have the data listed here, but I'm not going to read off 22 different numbers and PSI of what the balls were. But the end of it, you'd expect a little bit of change in pressure of the footballs based on science. Like, it's just what's happened when you have portions of ideal gas law or Guy Lussick's law. Pressure is going to decrease due to the weather conditions.
And anybody, if where we live, where many of our listeners live, if you think about it, I thought of it like this a lot. When you would go out to like shoot basketball when it was cold, or even if you play football when it's cold, if you're out there long enough, the ball, like, the pressure goes down
or decreases.
Usually when if somebody lives in an area where there's warm climate all year, they may have no idea what we're talking about, like in terms of that firsthand experience. But when we've gone out and played football in the snow and stuff like that, people, you understand, like, that can happen.
If you take a basketball that you had refrigerated out into the hot summer, it's going to inflate.
Yeah.
But if you take it the opposite, if you take it from a warm climate inside a locker room to a cold climate, 20 degrees, or I don't know what it was that day. That's just me throwing out a number.
It was 20.
Was it really?
Well, I don't. Never mind. I'll save that. It was 20, but I'm referring to something else.
But anyways,
I'll talk about that later.
They're going to deflate. That's the ideal gas law. PV equals nRT.
So there is something there.
Pressure is linked to temperature. Right. That's just the way it works. But based on the scientific calculations, the timing and the weather reports, the footballs should have scientifically been at halftime when they were measuring the footballs between 11.32 and 11.52 PSI. The 2 referees, and one was named Prelow, the other was Clete Blakeman. Prelow measured all 11. 3 of them were below the threshold, showing that something else had to cause the deflation, according to the report. But 8 of the 11 tested by Blakeman were underinflated. So why is there the discrepancy? Because that's kind of a big deal. 3 out of 11, like, there's still something there. So maybe it was a mistake. Maybe you can throw out a bunch of excuses. But 8 out of 11, that's huge. Like, that's a lot. Right. 8 out of 11, and
that doesn't count the one that tipped them off.
And if it's tipping you off, it's probably underinflated.
Right.
Like,
right.
And actually, I talked a little over a week ago with Coach Doms, the Wilson football coach. He said that it's very obvious professional football players, like, refs and coaches and the like on the sidelines, you can spot an underinflated football just by holding it. It's really simple to do.
It's, to me, again, and we'll talk about some other similarities or some comparisons. I shouldn't say similarities, but some comparisons with other sports. Not everyone knows that, but like as you go up the level in baseball, for example, the seams get more tightly stitched and more into the ball. By the time you get to Major League Baseball, the seams are hardly out of the baseball at all. They're really tight in there. In like Little League baseball, they stick out. It's like
grip purposes.
Right. So you can grip it, and so as you go up the chain, it if you were to hand a professional pitcher a AAA baseball, he would know without looking at it, just by holding it in his hand, he would know this is different. Now, to combat that, and this is not considered doctoring the ball, but a lot of pitchers will grow out their fingernails on the ones usually their first 3 fingers, usually, so that they can just grip the ball better. And that's fine. Now, if they're using it to scratch at the ball, or if they then you have issues. But in terms of just gripping in baseball, that's fine. But I'm just that comparison of when you're at the highest level and you get that in your hand, Look at, again, not the same thing at all. But a few years ago when they went to the synthetic leather basketballs, the NBA, there was so much of an uprise. They changed them mid-season.
Yeah.
They changed it mid-season. They did not like it, No. So just all of that going together at the highest level, all right, and the people who have been around this and are so fine-tuned, they are very particular about every little detail. And you can't tell me that a team like the Patriots is not particular about every little detail, because that is their success. Their success. I'm I don't mean that might have sounded like I'm saying all their success is based on,
no,
on
I
this
understand.
ball. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that their success is on attention to all the other details that many teams
just take for granted.
And that's why they do so many things better than other teams. All right, so hopefully some of our listeners are hearing me say that, like, the Patriots do many things better than other teams do.
They're also saying to themselves, they're only in the recap phase. They haven't even got to their opinions yet.
Right.
But anyway.
But just to kind of be clear, like, I think, the minor changes in
air pressure,
the ball, whether it be the makeup of the outside of the ball, like in basketball or baseball, or whether just how pumped up that ball is, they're going to know. Professionals will know.
All right, so anyways, there was a discrepancy in the measurements. One of them could be who measured first, because obviously when you measure it, a tiny bit of air is going to leak out. The bigger problem, and this is the one that was a huge red flag, and a lot of the Patriots backers and people that think the NFL is overstepping their bounds, that this was a sting and like Ted Wells was out for a predetermined outcome. There are two pressure gauges. They have no idea which one was used before the game or which one was used at halftime. That's a big difference because one was measuring higher pressures than the other. So, which of those is the true values? Which was used to test at the beginning? The head ref, Walt Anderson, has no idea which one he used. He said he thought he used this one, but he couldn't say for certain. He did know, he said for a fact, because he was there. I think he actually took the measurements before the game, before there was inappropriate handling by Patriots staff members. All the balls were up to at least the minimum threshold of 12.5 PSI. Like I said, one of the gauges gives higher readings, one of them gives lower. So that's right there. If this was a scientific paper and held up to the standards in the scientific community, this would just be thrown out and laughed about. I mean, it would be. You have to know your equipment. You have to know the control and what's not. You have to know how everything reads. So that's a huge part of the defense of the Patriots and attacking the NFL and the punishment that was handed down. But however, no matter how you look at it, there were still balls below the threshold at a minimum of 3, possibly 4,
and
if
a
the
max
one that
of
Jackson
8
had.
or 9.
8, right, exactly. So no matter what, if you buy into the scientific analysis that said that all the balls should have been between 11.32 and 11.52, there were a minimum of 3 definitely below that threshold. So what happened to those?
Right, which again, just at some point, like if you're going to be like, we want to apply science to this, but not that part.
Right, now I want to leave that one out.
Right, just...
So obviously something happened. But without the proper documentation of the gauges, the exact pressure readings from before and at halftime, the evidence is suspect. And that's exactly what Patriots fans and the organizations wants to throw out. And that's what, Agent Yee from Tom Brady's agent and the ridiculous website that was launched by the Patriots, they want to point out all that. Any defense is pointing out the stuff that you think will get people on your side. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Right.
You're not going to point out something that underscores or undermines your argument.
Not if you're a good lawyer, which I'm sure the Patriots lawyer is not going to be some no-name guy.
Exactly, right. So, I mean, what I said was, this would fail in the scientific community.
Absolutely.
It would fail in criminal court.
Absolutely.
Why? Because it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, which is what you need for convictions in criminal court.
Right. And I know, just looking at kind of the show notes here where we're about to go, but that's the key. This would not, and we admit, and the NFL admits, and Ted Wells has talked about this, based on the rules, is how he did his report. But in this, we're not in criminal court.
We're not in criminal court. What are we? Well, by the way that the CBA and the NFL, the conduct policies both for teams and players operates, they don't operate beyond reasonable doubt. They operate in what's called preponderance of evidence. What's preponderance of evidence? Well, exactly how Ted Wells wrote in his report. It's more likely to be true than not, or I'll read it verbatim. This is what he said. Quote from the Ted Wells report, "It is more probable than not that New England Patriots personnel participated in violations of the playing rules and were involved in a deliberate effort to circumvent the rules. In particular, we have concluded that it is more probable than not that Jim McNally, the officials' locker room attendant for the Patriots, and John Jastrzemski, an equipment assistant for the Patriots, participated in a deliberate effort to release air from Patriots game balls after the balls were examined by the referee. Based on the evidence, it also is our view that it is more probable than not that Tom Brady, the quarterback for the Patriots, was at least generally aware of the inappropriate activities of McNally and Jastrzemski involving the release of air from Patriots game balls." Now, he said it 3 times. More probable than not. That is the preponderance of evidence. That's what applies in civil cases.
And that is how the rule of the conduct policy and everything in the collective bargaining, all that stuff in the NFL are written using that language, specifically that language. And that's why, Ted Wells said, that is why he used that. He didn't say, oh, I'm doing this to kind of save us. He's like, no, this is the language
set forth by the NFL.
Right, including Robert Kraft, and who is part of the ownership collectively
that voted on the change.
And
when did the change happen? Roger Goodell went to the owners and the competition committee saying, hey, we like to change this from beyond reasonable doubt that applies to criminal cases to the preponderance of evidence, or more probable than not, that is, American civil law cases. And it was approved. When did that happen? After Spygate.
Right.
They didn't want something like that to happen again. Right. So it's been about 7 years or so since they changed from, looking at things criminally to civilly, in terms of basically you have to have concrete, solid evidence, eyewitnesses and all that, to you have to have information that can kind of show, well, there's definitely a correlation there. Do we think that means causation?
Is it 51%? Like,
essentially, that's what it amounts to.
Is it more probable than not?
And it is.
And that's what
the report says. Right. And funnily enough, why Mike Florio grinds my gears often with the way he acts. He is a former lawyer that does football stuff now.
Right.
So when it comes to this kind of things, he's all over it. And he's, more often than not, it's been bad for the Patriots, but he's also pointing out a few things that go in their favor in terms of fighting this if it gets to actual court, not just NFL court. But way back in January, right after the AFC Championship game, but before the Super Bowl, Florio at NBC Sports Pro Football Talk said, this is the way this will go. Don't think there has to be overwhelming physical evidence for the Patriots to get the book thrown at them. There doesn't have to be. And he pointed out that after Spygate, the NFL adopted these rules, and Robert Kraft was one of the people that were on board with it.
Right. And again, to me, and I know we're going to delve into our opinions in just a minute here, but to me, it's another part where Robert Kraft is like, great, fantastic, this is the way it's going to be. And then when it is on them, it's like, oh, well, I don't like the way it's coming out now.
I completely agree, but that's how everyone's going to naturally react.
Absolutely. I don't blame him for it, but it's the reality of it.
I mean, everyone, and one of the things that I always put, I hope I've addressed this on the show enough, and I want to be called on if it happens. I don't like hypocrites like that. If you want to stand for something, fine, but don't come around and turn it around. But I know we all do that when we're under fire.
Right.
That's what happens.
Right. No, absolutely.
But I mean, it's obviously blatant double standards or hypocrisy that a lot of the things that are going on in Robert Kraft's mind.
Right.
It's just, it doesn't go with what's been said in public.
And but to me, instead of saying all these things are unfair. Now, again, we'll address some of those things, whether we think they're fair or not in just a second. But as you talk about it, when he's like, some of these things are unfair and everything, I wouldn't say they're unfair. I'd say if I'm you, listen, I'm the owner of the Patriots in the organization. At some point in time, he will sell the organization, or his kids will. I don't know, but at some point in time, that it will get passed on. He will no longer be the person in charge. I'm not saying soon, and that's unrelated to this case. I don't want to tie that in, but the Patriots will go on after Robert Kraft decides no longer to be the man in charge. However,
capacity.
When you look at what he is doing there, it's just like, I wish he would say, look, so while I am the owner, this is my number one priority, this establishment, the Patriots, and I will do everything I can to defend what we've done and the way we've done it and things like that. Okay, but to come out and all of a sudden say you're having unfair things thrown at you, I don't necessarily see it that way. And that kind of can lead us into our opinions a little bit here, but I'm not sure it's a question of fairness as maybe appropriateness. I think those are two different things here.
So, are the Patriots and Tom Brady guilty? Now, this is going to be our opinion time. I'm going to go first, but I want to throw out there just, to not have anything hidden anywhere. Most everyone listening knows that I'm a Dolphins fan. So it's obviously going to look like homerism if I rail on the Patriots. But I feel, and I said this a little bit ago, I've been very, very fair in my assessment of the Patriots on and off the field, at least over the last 2 years.
Right.
Now, closer to 2007, 2008, and when Spygate was happening and all this other stuff was happening, I'm sure I wasn't seeing things, maybe fairly, but a lot has changed since then, and I also think that as I've evaluated them, both based on their sports merit and character merits, I've been very fair to them. At least the last
I would
year
agree.
and a half, 2 years.
And I think at the beginning of the show we stated, like, you've been much more fair than I have. Like, I have been pure homerism, like, not based in New England against them. Like,
you're a fan of an NFC team,
right? But I admit that, like, I own that as well. And I, even when we get into some of our opinions here, I feel like I own that as well. Like, I'm seeing it through non-Patriot glasses. I admit that. But at the same time, I feel like there's probably going to be something between the way I see it and the way Robert Kraft sees it, and that's where it's probably going to end up. And I think I would be okay with that.
So what do I think? Are the patrons of Brady guilty? Yes. I mean, they're guilty of something. What the magnitude, I don't know. Something's going on. We'll get to the punishment later. This is just like, are they guilty? And in my opinion, yes, they are. And why? This is why I think that they're guilty, including Brady and the organization. Not at large, obviously, because I don't think Kraft had anything to do with it. I don't think he was telling it to happen. He doesn't care.
Right.
Even the Wells report even actually vindicates Belichick, which was hard to believe at first. But if he didn't find any evidence, at all, there's evidence for other people, but none for Belichick.
Right. Which
exonerated.
It kind of makes sense to me. I don't ever picture Tom Brady going to Bill Belichick and be, hey, listen,
I need the balls
I'm going to go and do this. Like, I just picture
just
Belichick like yelling at even Brady for doing that. Like, why would you do that? Yeah. Why would you tell me that? Like, yeah, no, I agree. I think, I don't think Belichick or Kraft had anything to do with it, which I think is part of why. And Belichick's been silent, and it's he doesn't need to say anything, and he won't. He won't say anything.
Not in public.
Right. He's going to use this as locker room material over and over and over again. Yeah. They're probably going to win the Super Bowl, go undefeated this year. Thanks, NFL. All right, but yeah, I truly don't think they had knowledge or anything of it up to the point of that game.
That game, right? Yeah, everything
after
changes.
That,
that's opening.
Now
the can
I don't
of worms.
right now, and we'll get to that. I think that's part of the problem here. Is this part of this punishment has been up to that game, and including what happened in that game, and part of it is since that game, and I know we have some of those things we're going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah, and the reason that I think that they're guilty, both Brady and parts of the Patriots organization, is there's still the fact that at a minimum 3 or even 4, depending on if that Jackson ball should have been tested. I don't know why it wasn't. But at least 3 of the balls were under the expected values that science says these are the values. Why were they under? So air had to come out of those balls in some capacity. There could have been as many as 8 or 9 if that Jackson ball would have been tested. That's huge. That's 8 or 9 out of 12.
Right.
Like, that's a massive amount to be underinflated.
And just a quick side note, too. They looked into the kicking balls because there was an issue with the kicking balls. And there was no issue with the kicking balls.
They were perfect. They were within the values, I should say. They weren't perfect. They weren't 12.5 or higher. They were within the proper threshold. So nothing had happened to them.
So there were footballs out there.
Which were
in the
fine.
Same conditions.
Were never
which
touched
were all
by,
fine.
McNally and
because they were
Stremski.
also investigated.
Correct.
And they were all fine.
But these weren't.
The ones that Tom Brady used weren't.
I also want to point out before I finish why I think they're guilty. We're not even going to get into on this show, do we think that slightly underinflated footballs actually help people on the field that much? I know there was a stat going around about Brady's fumbling, but you have no idea when the underinflation started. Was this a recent thing? Has it been his entire career? You have no point for reference, but I saw, was it the Spygate cutoff? Was it I don't know, but I saw, Brady fumbling through this many games, Brady fumbling through this many games, and there was a huge change. But you have no idea when the deflating started.
Right.
So, I'm not even going to address that. We're not going to address, do we actually think slightly underinflated footballs make you a better football player, a better quarterback?
Oh, I may address it.
Okay, well, go right ahead. I'm not going to address that because I think it could take up an entire show. And we want to finish here in 5 minutes to let other people chime in because we have an email to get to. But even without the fact that there were at least 3 balls underinflated, as many as 8, there are texts between McNally and Jastrzemski and Brady that indicate foul play. And the absolute ridiculousness of the Patriots' remarks on their website about what those texts were about is absurd. I'm sorry. It's stupid.
Even people, reporters who say, like, listen, I'm a Patriots supporter. I think the NFL overstepped their bounds. This is ridiculous. Like, that part of their response. Like,
absolutely stop it.
Right, yeah.
Like, one was about they had stolen shoes or basically looted shoes, and that's what the one thing they were about, and that the other guy needed to lose weight.
Right.
Come on. That's pathetic.
Right.
Like, that's awful. Absolutely awful. And also, Robert Kraft went up on a pedestal saying, I want an apology. If we're going to fully cooperate, and I want an apology when nothing comes out that nothing happened. And by all reports from the league and Ted Wells up to a certain point, they cooperated properly. And then all of a sudden something changed. They no longer wanted to give a follow-up to, I think it was McNally. Tom Brady was very forthcoming in his interviews, but would not turn over his phone for evidence. And I know you get these people out there all about personal privacy and blah, blah, blah. Ted Wells and his investigators said that they could literally give the information to them. They could vet the information. They weren't even going to touch it. It was going to go to a third party, and Brady and Yee could be there. Like, this wasn't, I'm taking your cell phone to take everything.
Right.
So if you're sending nasty pictures to Giselle, they're going to be all over the internet. No, that wasn't going to happen. But he wouldn't turn over emails, wouldn't turn over his cell phone.
We get into a problem there, the lack of cooperation. A huge problem.
Well, it's lack of cooperation, and again, why aren't you cooperating? What are you trying to hide? And, a lot of people are drawing the conclusion that there was something worse.
I've heard, and I've heard stuff like when in the NFL policy, we're not talking legal standpoint here, we're talking NFL policy. If you are given a drug test and you refuse the drug test, it counts as a failed drug test. You're guilty. They equate that, I say they, the people who are applying their opinion to this. I'm not saying it said this in the Wells case, but that by failing to cooperate, in the NFL's eyes, that's guilt.
And we obviously we don't get into politics on this show, but I've always been in the stance because I know the social issues that run rampant in this country. I've always been in the stance. I don't have anything to hide. I don't care. Like, monitoring doesn't bother me. Like, as long as the people monitoring me, aren't giving out my personal information.
Right.
If you're just watching, I really don't. I don't care. I'm sorry. Like, I don't. But because I'm always like, I'm not hiding anything, so I don't care. Like, if you listen to my phone calls, I don't care because I'm not hiding anything. You want to listen to me talk to my dad 15 times a day? You're like, there's nothing going on.
I do not.
Yeah, you probably don't.
I do not.
Because we're just making fun of you the whole time.
Right, exactly.
But like, I don't care. Like, so, but to me, if you're truly innocent, you're not hiding behind the ridiculously overused personal privacy cliche. Like, that's exactly what my opinions are on that.
Right.
So as soon as Brady wouldn't turn over that information, that's guilty to me. You're guilty because you're hiding something. It could have been just the deflation. It could be something else. So right there, that's a huge strike. That was a big one for me. I mean, and it goes to the team, too, because the team, suddenly stopped cooperating, too.
Right.
Because I think they were figuring out the NFL was finding something. And they had to stop it, which makes it worse when we come to the punishment.
Right.
So that's my reason why I think the organization and Brady are guilty.
And to give my opinion, I agree. Yes, I think they are guilty. I said to Joey, and to kind of summarize what my points are here, I think, has it been overblown to a point? Is it like snowballing out of control? Quite possibly, to be honest. Like, I think it may be like snowballing out of control here. Just everything that's coming on and all this stuff, and the legal battle that's about to take part and all this stuff. I think it's a shame that it has to happen. Do I think they're guilty? So probably. I do think it's getting overblown. Do I think they're guilty? Yes, I do. Like, I think they did it. I think that in my eyes, when I look at it, and again, I've said it earlier on this show, I've said it throughout the show, like, I am a Patriots hater. I am. But when you look at this stuff, like, why weren't any of the kickers' footballs, like, messed out of the regular range, according to the science, of the deflating, versus the balls that Tom Brady is going to use? Why is he involved in techs that would supposedly be included for weight loss?
Right.
That makes no sense. Just so these things. Somebody said, it's funny because the first time I heard a reporter say this, they were talking about was months ago. They said, and this obviously completely unrelated to this case, just Patriots. Aaron Hernandez's lawyers, what they were hoping for were for at least one juror to just believe in incredible coincidences. And I feel like that's what the Patriots are doing here. The Patriots are hoping for people to believe in incredible coincidences. So to run through just real quick some of my things. All right. We talked about they beat the crap out of the Colts, right? And they were the better team.
Right. And this goes to the balls obviously weren't the reason the Patriots beat the crap out of the Colts.
However,
the Patriots were the better team.
So some people are like, so what? What does it matter? They were fine for the Super Bowl. They beat the Seahawks then. Okay, well, the problem I have is that and this is part of the Patriots even admitting this. They're like, well, they were tipped off earlier in the year when we played the Indianapolis, and Indianapolis complained about tacky footballs then that the Patriots were using. And they're like, the NFL didn't address it, so it was like collusion against us, right? So basically, my take on that is the Patriots like, well, they complained about us cheating before, and we didn't get caught till later, so they were holding on to it.
Operation.
No, that's not. It's not like saying, "Hey, I ran a stop sign." The neighbors called the police and said, "Hey, somebody keeps running this stop sign," and now that neighbor's in collusion with the police officers to you because they didn't call you to say, "Hey, stop running that stop sign."
Out eventually?
Right? Yeah. Also, and this is we can't get too much into it just because of time, but when you look at it, Brady struggled in the first half against Baltimore. All right, the week before the Indy game. In the second half, all right, 70% completion rate, not pass rating, 70% completion rate in 20 degrees and terrible weather, all in the second half. Like, it was a completely different game. I think they ran the ball like 5 or 6 times in that, even when they were trying to run out the clock and stuff, they were passing. Now, they've done that like play calling before, like where they're just passing a lot. But he played much better in the second half than he did in the first half, and the conditions were getting worse. I kind of look at it as, and again, the Spygate thing, all right, I know it's not necessarily linked to this, but to me, all right, something went wrong there. You were punished for it. And the NFL, we talk about transparency and stuff like that. They weren't transparent at all. They destroyed all the evidence, didn't even tell you exactly what happened.
A lot of people think they found a lot more than they wanted to.
Right, because why would you destroy the evidence if it wasn't worse than everybody thought? You know, if it wasn't as bad as everybody thought, you can be pretty sure they would have shown everybody the evidence. In my opinion.
Yeah, and that's
and again,
the thought of
now
a lot of people.
I'm speculating there, but all right, you did that, and then you get to this. All right, to me, again, you're looking at someone. All right, well, you see sometimes somebody's arrested for their 8th DUI. Do you think they've only driven drunk 8 times? At that point, do you think they've only driven drunk 8 times? No, they've been caught 8 times.
Right.
To me, the Patriots have been caught cheating twice. All right, and in that time frame, do I believe those are the only 2 times they've cheated? No.
I just want to interject there because I know one of the other things that the Patriots say, and maybe you're actually going to address this, is, well, other teams do it. Well, the other teams that got caught, like the Saints, which wasn't really cheating, but I don't want to hear that the Patriots are the only team that gets disciplined because we saw the Browns and the Falcons get disciplined just this offseason as well. The Saints got a huge discipline for the bounty thing, obviously not related to the integrity of, the on-the-field actions of the game. Obviously, the integrity of the game suffered from people trying to injure other people. But, I mean, the actual play on the field had nothing to do with the Saints case. They got hit. Like I said, Browns and Falcons just got hit. We've seen the Broncos get hit when they play with the salary cap. So this is not the NFL out to get the Patriots in any capacity. And, yes, I'm willing to bet every team cheats in some way.
Absolutely.
But they haven't been caught yet.
Absolutely. And everyone does it is not an acceptable defense.
Exactly.
It's not acceptable in the civil basis. It's not acceptable in the criminal. Yeah. It's not
acceptable with your friends or family.
Right. It may be true, but that doesn't excuse you.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cross.
Well, and just like, sorry,
you're fine.
As being a Dolphins fan, they just got investigated for the Ndamukong Suh stuff. Now they got exonerated from that they said there wasn't any foul play. But these other investigations happen. I'm willing to bet there's some that even Pro Football Talk doesn't hear about. I bet these NFL squads are inspected for a bunch of stuff all the time.
Absolutely.
And actually, a lot of times, Pro Football Talk finds about it after the fact. They're like, well, we know this happened last year. We got a memo that this happened.
The Des Bryant video. And nothing ever came of it.
Reporters knew about it for months.
They're trying. And all these insiders were trying to get it, and nothing ever came out. All that came out was that there may or may not have been this video.
The only reason
5 years ago.
This is so big is because of the success of the Patriots now and what it was related to. It's related to the biggest game in the NFL.
We only care because it's the Patriots and they won the Super Bowl. Yes. That is why we care. They're like, you wouldn't care if it was a 2-16 team.
No.
Exactly. Just like nobody cares when minor league baseball players get suspended for steroids. No one cares. Because they're minor league players.
And it had no effect on the World Series.
If the Browns were cheating, everybody would be like, they were cheating and they're still terrible. That's what everybody would have said. But no, when the best team, when the face of the NFL, Tom Brady, when the face of ownership in the NFL, Robert Kraft, when the face of coaching in the NFL, Bill Belichick, when all of those are any way tied to something that could or could not taint, their success, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And so when I don't want to hear, everybody cheats. No. Okay, that might be true, but you got caught in the biggest game, and that's a problem for me. Basically, like, I understand I'm a hater, all right, but this just adds fuel to the fire to everyone. And to me, I said it, I had it listed at the top, but I saved it for the end. Basically, you fool me once, all right, shame on you. You fool me twice, shame on me. Like, when I look at it, like, to me, there will always be questions. You absolutely can't take away Super Bowls. They won them on the field, absolutely. But to me, there's always they did it questionably, because look, they've gotten caught 2 different ways in their Super Bowl runs, right? In their Super Bowl runs, they've been caught 2 separate times, and that just makes me think, they're probably doing all kinds of stuff, because we talk all the time about the Patriots towing the line, and I know they're not the only ones, but they toe the line a lot. And they don't care. They don't care what anyone else thinks. And we talked about it. And again, this was perfectly legal, no problem. But when they do the formation shifts and everything like that, they're towing the line. They know the rule. They're not breaking the rule.
And now the NFL said, we don't want you to do that.
They're not breaking the rule. And there is no penalty for that.
In defense of the Patriots, I still find ludicrous.
Right, absolutely. But they toe the line all the time. And it's with more probable than not, in my opinion, that somebody that toes the line all the time occasionally loses their balance and steps over.
Oh, yeah, and it's been proven. So quickly, the punishment that was handed down to the Patriots, quarterback Tom Brady was suspended for 4 games. The Patriots, as an organization, were fined $1 million, and they lost their 2016 first-round pick, and the following season, the 2017 draft, 2 years from now, the 4th-round pick. Okay, opinions on the severity of the punishment, and I'll go real fast here. I'm compartmentalizing this.
Yes.
I don't want to compare it to the personal conduct policy, because that is stupid. Or even not the most recent stuff with domestic violence, or even like the PEDs or recreational drug use.
It's a separate issue.
It's completely different. So my punishment actually is worse for Brady, because it's clear that it's clear to me, in my opinion, based on the information we have, especially the text message, and his unwillingness to properly cooperate, that he should have been suspended 6 to 10 games, because I'd expect the appeal to drop it to 3 to 5. I expect the 4 games to be dropped to at least 2.
Right. I think it may go down to 1.
I could see it being thrown away completely.
Me too. I could see it being gone completely.
Of course.
The interesting thing is going to see, how did the rewrite of the rules, which Kraft approved of, to that more probable than not, cause, how does that play into effect here?
I would keep the fine and the draft picks the same. That's about what I expected, mostly because they're second-time offenders. The things are going to get worse. So why do I believe that? Brady deliberately broke the rules that have an impact on the game. That's more severe to me than the off-the-field and image issues that I know, that's more significant in the grand scheme of things. But when you're talking football, this is more practical to impact the game than the other stuff is that the NFL is fighting with right now.
Absolutely.
He impeded the investigation and didn't cooperate. He essentially hung himself to me. That's what he did. And someone said this. If they would have just came out in January and said, yeah, we did this, my bad, the punishment would have been nowhere near as this severe.
Somebody said, I think I heard Ryan Russillo talking about this, and he's like, would they have suspended him for the Super Bowl? Not a chance.
No way.
Not a chance. If he comes out and says, yeah, I like when they're under deflated, I didn't know that that was without outside of the range that's acceptable. They would have gotten fined, and that is it.
I could have seen maybe a small suspension just to say we put it out there.
Right. But they probably would have said he can't participate in mandatory off-season stuff or something like that.
But that's the biggest reason for the punishment to me. And like I mentioned, the Falcons and Browns got hit. Atlanta got hit with sanctions for piping the crowd noise. They fessed up to it. They made the changes, and they accepted the light punishment that was handed down to them. They had to forfeit like a mid-round draft pick, I think. But the Patriots are fighting and impeding, and that just makes it worse. And like Falcons owner Arthur Blank said, they a failure to acknowledge that there was a problem. They tried to fight it. Now they're trying to throw it back at the NFL. You can't do that. Stop. Right. You look awful. It's terrible, terrible.
And here's the thing. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, they're fighting it. Yeah, but how far are they going to take this? Are they going to take it to court? A lot of people think they won't, because as soon as they file a lawsuit in discovery stage of that, everything's on the table then. And if there is something worse, it's going to get a lot worse for the Patriots in a hurry.
Just look at the Penn State thing when all the discovery stuff came out with the NCAA. What happened? All of the sanctions ended up being thrown out the window because the NCAA was scared to death because a lot more was going to come out. That regardless of political affiliation, the the Pennsylvania politicians rallied together with the university eventually and, put an end to this because discovery. Look at all the stuff we found out about the NCAA and collusion with them.
Right.
And the free investigation.
Right.
And because of our relationship with the Penn State aspect, like, I tried to go in this, I didn't want to have a predetermined outcome. Yeah. I wanted to read the report, which I read plenty of. I did not read all 234 pages, but I read more than just the executive summary. I didn't want to go in with, a predetermined outcome. I wanted to see what it said. And the hiding stuff or the not cooperating, that just throws up a huge red flag to me. But anyways, what do you think about the punishment handed down? What would you have done?
I honestly, the night before it came down, I said, I think it's going to be 4, and I think it'll be reduced to 2. It wouldn't surprise me if the Patriots won. You see wealthy people with resources get off for stuff they do all the time. All the time. So it wouldn't surprise me if they get off with 0 games, but it doesn't change the fact that they did it, right? Whether or not the punishment is actually enacted versus it was handed out and they were found guilty, to me, like, I think they did it. I think that they may be able to fight it, and I think the NFL has created problems here in the fact that Roger Goodell and the system have seemed to kind of just been like, well, I don't know, that's pretty bad. This is the punishment. Like, there is no set policy. Right. So they've created that problem on their own, right? So I think on technicalities like that, they may get things reduced, but that doesn't mean they didn't do it. Right. They may get off on a technicality.
All right, so we have very, very little time. We're actually already over, but we're going to run down these last few things here. Okay, the Patriots' response, we already kind of covered. It was laughable and ridiculous. Like, it's just pathetic, like, what they put out there. And I love the thing that they had, like, an independent science guy come in and kind of debunk what was going on. Yeah, his group was started by Robert Kraft.
Right.
Did you see that?
Right,
he put forth funding.
Yeah.
Oh, but he's still okay, yeah. Right. You couldn't find any other
Yet they claim Ted Wells isn't.
Right, yeah. Ted Wells is in the NFL pockets, but that guy's not in Robert Kraft. Okay, ridiculous. And the excuses for McNally and Jastrzemski that we talked about are just preposterous. Why did the Patriots fire them if they're not guilty? Why are they not defending them?
Right. Exactly.
They got rid of them.
Right. So nothing. We did absolutely nothing wrong, but these guys are gone.
These guys are gone. Okay, so there's appeal forthcoming. I'd expect a reduction in the suspension. Possibly the fine and the draft picks cut in half. Why? Because they wanted an independent arbitrator, but it's not. Goodell is going to preside. He's not expected to recuse himself because it makes him and the Wells report look bad. If you're like, yeah, I probably should step back. He wants to support what his league, presented, and that's all up in the air. I think Brady has appealed, but the Patriots have not. But they have until the middle of this week, I think, to file an appeal. So there's that. Patriots Brady legacy, you kind of addressed it. You said in your eyes it's always be tainted. There's always been asterisk. I'm not quite as hyperbolic or harsh, because I don't know how much this contributed to their success. Because we pointed out Spygate, people throw that out there as, tainting possibly all their Super Bowls. We've put out the data before that shows the Patriots have been better since Spygate was over. So how much did their spying actually contribute to the success?
Right, so they weren't that good then. How'd they win?
There's always an excuse, and this is for the haters to just rail on that.
Right, exactly.
Do I actually think it ruins anything with Brady or the Patriots? No, to me, no, not really.
Right.
But then my but to that is, why do you keep doing it? You are too good of a program, an organization, a player. You don't need this stuff. Why do you keep doing it? And it just comes back to the arrogance that just surrounds the program. And I don't get it. Because you could be this this top standard that literally only the people hate you because they're jealous. But it's not just the jealousy anymore. Now it's all this stuff.
Right.
You could be the image of the NFL, the dynasty that that goes down in the history books. But because of this arrogance and this purported cheating, taints stuff in a lot of people's eyes. You don't need to do it. Stop doing it.
Some people are like, Spygate, how can you keep bringing that up? Well, the biggest players are the same. I know that everyone else has been turned over, but Belichick's still there, Kraft is still there, Brady's still there. The three biggest players, including the one who is, been, in my eyes, proven guilty here, he was also involved.
Right.
So when will that run out? When there's a change in coaching staff.
Right. The last thing to address is just fans being fans, because I found it very comical, some of the stuff that was out there. And it's not just limited to
I understand. If I was a Patriots fan, I'd be defending it. I'd be defending or rationalizing it. Maybe not defending, but I'd be rationalizing it.
But some of the stuff out there, come on. Stop comparing the Brady suspension to Ray Rice, please. That is apples to oranges. It's completely ridiculous. First of all, it's different policies.
Right.
One of which was changed due to the public opinion with the Ray Rice case. Why are you not comparing it to the Greg Hardy suspension?
Right.
Because that's the one it's more comparable to.
Right. And to me, even there, you're talking about criminal cases and how the NFL interprets the criminal instances.
And some people think there shouldn't even be any association with that.
Right. Versus here, there's nothing criminal happening. Nobody's going to end up in jail. Nobody's doing community service. Nobody is paying off, victims so that they don't, testify and you don't go to jail. None of that's happening here, right? This is in the grand scheme, much less serious thing.
Nothing to do with anything. Right? It means nothing.
Right. But exactly. They're completely unrelated.
Yes, so stop. You look ridiculous. Maybe
this is the worst.
Ridiculous.
This is the worst.
Was the GoFundMe page set up really to pay the $1 million fine? Really? First of all, the team's saving money when Brady's suspended.
Right.
They don't have to pay him
making money.
So they're actually going to make money by Brady being suspended. Second of all, Robert Kraft is worth billions of dollars. So you giving him a couple $100,000 or raising your $1 million is just stupid. Second, it makes your fan base look pathetic. It's terrible. That is just awful. It might serve as a rallying cry for everyone in New England Patriots fan, but you don't have to care about what the opinions are of everyone else. But just know that this makes you look really ridiculous. Absolutely terrible. The GoFundMe page is, oh God, it's terrible. One thing that I will support and absolutely behind is their No Brady, No Banner hashtag. That's a perfectly proper and understandable use of us against the world. Just like they'll use as a rallying cry next year. Fine. That's great. Right. Build your team.
Yeah.
Your goal is to win. Do it. Do it properly.
Just don't cheat.
Do it. Don't cheat. That's fine. And, starting this, I don't want to see the banner raised until Brady's back. Fine. That's perfectly understandable.
That's your choice.
That's the kind of stuff, the grassroots movement that you want. The GoFundMe thing is ridiculous.
I was kind of hoping, I hear a bunch of people who are hoping they'll lose, if he is out 4 games or 2 games or whatever he ends up being out, if any. But they were like, I hope they lose those games and it comes back and gets them. No, I hope they win all those and then they lose. I just want quarterback controversy in New England.
All right. So now we had an email from my uncle in New England. We do not have the time to get to it. We read through it because he came in a little bit before the show started.
Somehow I feel this is going to go into next week.
There'll probably be another rebuttal from him and maybe others because there was so much to talk about. We ran out of time to do it ourselves and to open it up for text, calls, and emails. So we're going to address his email at the start of next week's show and any others that we may get it. But I hope that we're at least enlightening and we did a good recap of what's actually going on and
then where we stand.
The clouded stuff that could be out there and also where we stand on it. And I feel that I went about it in a very fair capacity. And I probably reached the conclusion that everyone expected me to reach. But I don't think I did it just out of homerism or hate on the Patriots or being a Dolphins fan.
And while I've owned that homer sense against them, or the hater sense, I guess, against the Patriots. But again, just to be clear, I've read into both sides. I've looked at the things, and I've come to that conclusion. I feel like if there was gross negligence on Ted Wells' part, I feel like I would have I would have factored that into my opinion somewhat. Again, I don't think it was that big of a deal, but the way they're fighting it and the way their lack of cooperation and the way they're saying the NFL is making too big of a deal. I think the Patriots are just as guilty at that, and therefore are going
where
to...
Where there's smoke, there's fire. And
exactly.
the NFL got the smoke, but the Patriots is turning it into the fire.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so that wraps up this part of the show. Obviously, we're going to adjust it a bit at the beginning of next week's show. But the one thing we want to point out before we leave is that we are debuting a new website, which I hope some of you have seen posted on the Facebook page. It's just something that's come up, and I think it will be great for the show going forward. You can find our archive, the upcoming schedule. You can go right here to watch us live. There's also a great new way to contact us. If you're watching us in Ustream, I have it pulled up right now. There's a contact page that actually has where you can call the Mays Sandwich Shop hotline, the number there all the time, but also instead of emailing us at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com, there's now a actual email form that you can fill out and actually tell us, why you're contacting us, or if there's something you want to set up with us, you can go do that in there. But the last thing is this interesting bit right down here under the contact page. You can actually send us a voicemail. So that when we come on the show, we can play the voicemail and address your question, comment, take your suggestions, whatever it may be, when we're not on the air. So if you have any kind of smartphone or smart device like an iPad, you can download their free app and you can send us a voicemail there. Or you can do so straight from your computer as long as you have an active microphone. It's real simple. It's free. It's easy. You get 90 seconds to adjust whatever you want to, and we can play that for you on the next show. So instead of
as long
us
as
email,
what you say is appropriate
right, PG,
to be said,
no swearing, no yelling at us. But if you would rather get
you
your
can
voice,
yell at us if you don't swear at us.
right? True. If you'd like to get your voice heard and don't want to do it through email, this is a great way to do that. So again, you can find that on the contact section of our new website, which you can go to joemaysandjraff.com, or simple, you can just go to jmnjr.com, jmnjr.com, and that'll take you there as well. So browse that when you get an opportunity to do so, and hopefully it'll broaden our horizons and get a little bit more activity on the show and some more listeners. So I think that's everything for episode 175. Next week, I don't know what the topic will be, but we plan to be here unless my daughter decides to arrive. It'll be
I'm
Memorial
sure we
Day
will.
weekend.
We will touch on kind of our recap or summary of the Deflategate fallout. I really don't know that we're going to have that many more developments this week in what's going on,
right,
except kind of more people's takes on what's going to happen. I don't think we're actually going to have a whole lot of fallout of actual factual things
right,
that come out this week.
All right, then any shout-outs from you?
Actually, by this time next week, my sister will be married, so we have that next weekend. So,
congratulations to Andrea, mm-hmm, a few days early, but by the time we're on the air next week, she will be Andrea McGinnis.
Yeah, kind of crazy.
All right, then that's everything. Thanks for joining us. This wraps up the 175th episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
We hope you tune in every Sunday evening at 6:30 for our take on sports. Until next time, I'm J-Raff.
And I'm Joe Mays. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Don't forget, you can download each episode of the show from the podcast section of the iTunes Store. We'll see you next time, and thanks again for listening.